Well, my goodness, we did not expect our evening to start the way it has. Garrett, when we sat down to record, we thought we were going to be just recording a Bowl Mania, talking about how we saved bowl season once again. And instead, we are kind of dealing with all this Sherrone Moore news that's taken over Twitter, taken over headlines. Um, Sherrone Moore out at Michigan, a inappropriate relationship with a staffer. We're not going to get into all the details, but at this hour as we're recording this, I'm sure it will be a little bit clearer in the morning when the podcast releases. But as we're recording this, Garrett, there's some disturbing rumors that he's been arrested, that he allegedly broke into this staffer's house, threatened to potentially kill that person and himself. So yeah, man. I mean, a lighthearted topic in Bowl Mania. We'll get to that in a minute, but also a reminder that like things are crazy, and sometimes college football isn't just college football. As we start the show tonight.
Right. And when the news broke this afternoon, I was shocked because it didn't seem like a very smart move timeline wise, right? Like we've talked about how the coaching carousel has gone and how,
Mm-hmm.
man, it just seems like this is a weird time to try to fire a guy and you could have made this decision a couple weeks ago. And then of course it's the for cause, and then there's rumors and leaks and everything else. And man, it's just it went from being, and we are kind of talking about this, there were like kind of some awesome banger tweet jokes and you kind of laughing at some stuff at first, and it immediately turns into, okay, well, this might actually be a lot more tragic than I think most of us were thinking. So
Yeah.
definitely not going to be the one to jump and dance on the grave here. I'm not going to do that. It's not the appropriate thing, I think, especially since we're still, I mean, we're recording while a lot of this is still breaking, and
Right.
like we could have new information all of a sudden and things could still develop, right? So it's a little bit of a weird damper to the beginning of the podcast, which, man, it's like it's a bummer because, and the other part of it too is, man, Michigan seemed like they had turned some stuff around this last year, and I know that it wasn't necessarily like the best year for them, but you have a pretty decent season. You're playing the Cheez Bowl. It's not a terrible bowl game. They got, Bryce Underwood. He's starting to cook a little bit towards the end of the
Mm-hmm.
season. And like, man, like there were some things really starting to go. And I really just hope this doesn't kill that Michigan program with them being so far behind the eight ball when it comes to finding a way to replace them.
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate situation timing wise, and we do want to be careful because this is a ongoing situation investigation. We don't fully know the details around it, and so I think we'll leave off kind of that side of it properly. I think recognizing that this is a human interest story, and there are ostensibly lives that are affected and ruined by what's been going on, and so I think we'll give the deference to that, but this is a football show. We'll set that kind of in its place and make an effort to endeavor on to talk the ramifications on the football field of this move. Um, Michigan is up a creek without a paddle, no doubt about it. The timeline of this happening is fuzzy based on some reporting going on that maybe Michigan knew about this as early as last month, and they've been trying to figure out what on earth they were going to do. Well, while they've been twiddling their thumbs and figuring out how we're going to handle this in the public eye, Garrett, a lot of the available coaches have already been nabbed up. Coordinators are shuffling around the deck. Michigan had just made an announcement that they were retaining key members of their staff. I know some Michigan fans weren't thrilled that Wink Martindale was coming back, but for better or worse, a lot of schools had started to kind of cement their 2026 coaching plans and coaching hierarchy. We had signing day come and go. That now is completely unraveled with Moore being fired. There's a 15-day window that the transfer portal will now specifically open for Michigan players on the roster. Recruits who had signed national letters of intent are given a time to opt out of that and reconsider where they're going to go. It's a lot of chaos and upheaval at a terrible time in the calendar. As you mentioned, Michigan was preparing to go to the Citrus Bowl. That future is probably up in the air. But I think with all of that, I've also started to see some rumors that Michigan, because they took their time in November and into this early part of December, they may already have a plan in place, somebody that they could announce here in the next week or two, if some of these tweets are to be believed. And, try this name on for size. A guy coming back to the region, has had a lot of success in the Midwest, is a developer of quarterbacks. Garrett, the number one name being thrown around is one Kalen DeBoer, leaving Alabama to take over as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines.
That would honestly, I love the fit. First of all, it'd be fantastic if they could pull it off, and also, I mean, what a move if they could pull that off to hopefully save a lot of this, right? Because
Yeah,
it feels like at this stage in the coaching cycle, you're either looking at internal promotion, which I don't know if there's anybody in the coaching staff that inspires that kind of
probably
confidence.
not.
I wouldn't think so. Or you're having to go with somebody who probably won't get like garner that much excitement, right? Like it's extremely likely that at this stage that's it. So unless they have plans to go poach somebody, then that's probably where they're going. So I mean, man, like if you could pull off a Kalen DeBoer, I know I've seen like Jed Fish got thrown out there a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's another name that I think honestly I'd love for them at this stage. I mean, it's I think either of those would end up as big time hires for Michigan because it's a name that you recognize, it's a name that you can rely on, and it's a name that you can probably sell to the majority of your roster to stick around, right? It's I know that a lot of people are hoping they can make improvements on the roster going into this offseason, try to find some more playmakers to kind of help Bryce Underwood come along. I think at this
Mm-hmm.
phase, you're saying, hey, first off, we got to keep Bryce Underwood in the boat. Second off, we got to keep everybody else in the boat and make sure everybody's, still in for next season. So yeah, it's got to be a big name, and I think DeBoer would be huge, especially with how much it seems like the reputation, not necessarily sour at Alabama, but it feels like the fuse is starting to get a little shorter, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe some people are starting to say, well, hey, I thought that the post Saban era was going to be a lot rosier than this, and all you've got is a guy who almost made the playoffs last year and then did make the playoffs this year, and that certainly isn't the standard at Alabama, but I don't know, maybe they should be a little happier with it because if they lose DeBoer at this point, then that becomes this other massive cascading problem.
Yeah, I think priority number one as far as roster retention goes is probably keeping Bryce Underwood on the team. I mean, my goodness, you signed him to what, an $8 million contract coming out of high school. Like this was the biggest flip of the entire season last year, flipping him away from LSU. Obviously, he didn't look great this season, but he was a freshman quarterback starting in the Big Ten. Like there were obviously going to be bumps in the road. I think Michigan would love to see a guy who knows what they're doing when it comes to offensive scheme and developing quarterbacks. And that is one notch in the belt of Kalen DeBoer. You mentioned the seat down in Tuscaloosa, even though he made the SEC championship game, even though he's in the college football playoff, it's the results have been so far what Alabama has come to expect and get to know under Nick Saban. I don't honestly think it's any real fault of Kalen DeBoer. I think there was always going to be a crashing back to earth as you take over from the greatest of all time. But every misstep that he's had has been magnified down there in Tuscaloosa. And I do wonder if this is kind of the easy eject button for DeBoer. Michigan would obviously be in a position where I don't think they would say, "Hey, like you can't coach the playoffs with Alabama. Like we need you right now." I think you could probably, if Kalen would agree to go to Ann Arbor, I think they'd be flexible with letting him finish out this run with Alabama. I mean, it may end in the first round at Oklahoma if they lose three straight to the Sooners, but that's certainly one path. You mentioned Jed Fish as well, another offensive guy. I think the rumors all situate around the idea that Michigan is usually going to have a very good defense, right? You're probably not going to have to bring in somebody that specializes on the defensive side of the ball because defense is ingrained in this Michigan identity. The offense, though, that was quick to slip away at times, even under the Harbaugh administration, where it felt like, okay, our defense can get a stop, but we just cannot move the football. We can't develop a quarterback. That seems like a problem that has now gone and been across multiple coaching staffs. If I'm a Michigan fan, I think that's the first thing that I want addressed. And, Jed Fish would also possibly tick that box.
Yeah, I think either of those coaches would be a great choice. For me, the DeBoer possibility is probably the most intriguing because obviously, they got the Oklahoma matchup coming up.
Mhm.
If he lost to Oklahoma again, you have to think they're running him out of town, right? Like they're almost like, no, here, Michigan, take him. We don't want him. And so
Yeah.
you could see that situation. And then my other question I was starting to think about and say, hey, if DeBoer takes this job, is there any chance we get that mid-credit scene with Lane Kiffin where he decides, just kidding, I'm gonna totally jump ship and do something else, and we get Lane Kiffin the sequel and get to do that whole Marty Smith back out there, sitting at the Tuscaloosa.
Oh,
Hey, I'm here at Tuscaloosa waiting on Lane Kiffin to arrive. Like, or could we possibly get that lucky or unlucky, depending on how you see it?
I keep seeing that thrown around, and I cannot imagine that he would not just burn one bridge with Ole Miss, but then like 15 days later, I mean, we're what, 2 weeks past that, burn another bridge with Baton Rouge and all of Louisiana. Like at that point, it just seems like career suicide, no matter how much you might want the Alabama job. So I can't see that necessarily happening, but it it is we're in unprecedented times when it comes to the coaching carousel and everything else going on around college football. The fact that that idea is being entertained from what we know of Lane Kiffin, like I don't think you can ever say absolutely not 0% chance to any rumor like that until it's officially shut down because that's the kind of chaos that we're dealing with.
Well, and that's counting on character out of Lane Kiffin, which, I think we understand at this point that
Yeah, it's a losing
maybe
bet.
those two words are a little bit strained in the same sentence. I don't know that you can necessarily say that Lane Kiffin has incredible character.
Don't think so.
But I did see, though, however, that I think Dave Portnoy had tweeted at him saying that he needed to come up to Michigan. And he was like, how about you come down to the boot? So he might really be happy down there. But there's always that thing with me. I'm saying, hey, I know that it's unlikely, but it's the funniest possible result, so I gotta hope that it happens, right? That Lane would say, "Hey, so I know I just did this, but I'm gonna do it again. It's only been 15 days. Get over it," right? Like
Yeah.
it'd be pretty crazy for him to make that move. I don't think that it happens, just to be clear, but it would be crazy, and there's a little piece of me that wants to see the chaos.
Last part on this, I think this is a good place to wrap this particular YouTube video. Do you think that Michigan will be set back 3, 4, 5 years based on what's happened today? Because that seems to be the sentiment from college football writers, from personalities on Twitter, that obviously not knowing who the head coaching hire will be is the most important ingredient here. But there does seem to be an overwhelming pessimism with the football program at Michigan going forward, at least in the next, recruiting cycle, maybe more.
Yeah, it's going to be really easy to recruit against if that's the situation. I think
Yeah.
it entirely depends on the hire. Like at this point in time, if you have somebody great running your program, they're going to be able to turn it around very quickly. Transfer portal is one of those things. If you can convince the right set of players, it can turn real quick. But again, the transfer portal giveth, the transfer portal taketh away. It's the whole thing of, if it's gonna go that way for you, if you mess this hire up, if you completely botch it, and you end up hiring, I don't want to throw any shade, but like somebody from the MAC maybe who like they're just kind of regional
Yeah.
and possibly available and ready to go. If that's who you end up hiring and it doesn't spark any like real interest, the transfer portal can take it away, right? It can, take all your players, take your whole roster. And then, yeah, it may not be a 3 to 4 year thing. You could be looking at this as hey, this head coach is just going to have to crash and burn. And then maybe the next guy can turn us back into a bowl team or something like
Mhm.
that. It could get really ugly for Michigan.
Well, and there are those frustrations in Tuscaloosa with Kalen DeBoer. There are frustrations up in Washington as well with
Yeah.
Jed Fish. Pretty good at home, not so great on the road. I think they felt like there should have been more out of the offense, more consistently against the big time opponents. They didn't necessarily get that in Husky land. So, you said if you don't go out and hire a great coach, like I guess the question that we'll just have to wait and see is there a great coach to go and hire, right? Some of us, myself included, are probably higher on DeBoer than others are, but there's a lot of room for error here. And I certainly feel that the athletic department up in Ann Arbor has a lot of work to do in order to not only triage the current situation that's literally ongoing as we're recording this, but set their program up for success as well. So would love to know what the Jimmies and Joes think at 3Tech Pod. Give us your thoughts on that. Really, really messy, chaotic situation going up there in Michigan. We'll continue to watch with bated breath, just like the rest of you guys do.